It's all blooming AI everywhere, isn't it? AI. So how can we stay ahead of the curve? We don't want it to replace us. It's not after our job because it's not conscious. But let's work one step ahead so that it doesn't replace us entirely. It doesn't need to. That's not the best use of it. So here's a video about using AI in the software delivery lifecycle. Cracking on. Look at that. How AI speeds up the SDLC. Of course, good old SDLC is what we love doing. We are developers. We love developing software. But there's lots of stuff that gets in the way of stuff, right? So where does the time actually go when you're developing software? Is it actually coding? Probably not. It's coming up with the requirements documents. I know you've spoken to customers like I have, and they kind of know what they want, but they don't really know what they want. They certainly don't know enough about what they want to come up with a decent brief. So that's why we design a spec, a specification, so that we can at least get the client to agree to something. Now, these requirements can be misread, misrepresented, if that is a word, misunderstood by junior developers. Heck, even I've misunderstood what a customer went once. And then once we've got the requirements down, hey, testing. It's the bit everyone skips. Testing. Do we have to test it? Of course it's going to work first time. You can trust me, I'm a developer. And then we deploy it, and the deployment goes sideways, and oh yes, we definitely should have had more testing. Well, that's going to take a bit of time. Now I'm going to mention it. Pull requests, code reviews, whatever you want to call them. Man, those can sit on somebody's queue for days, and you're just twiddling your thumbs waiting for the next step, just for somebody to look through the code that's been generated and to get a thumbprint on it. It feels like a fire drill, right? When you're moving on to the deployment stage. Oh my God, I've got to do a change request, go through change control, get grilled, and then when we finally get to doing the deploy, quivering as we hit the deploy button, just in case something does go wrong. And then when it does go wrong, oh my goodness, we got to roll back, we got to write reports, we've got to have meetings after meetings. And so all of these take up time. And all of these are repetitive work that we don't really want to do. So, AI is here. We can give it work to do. Let it do the boring stuff. Let it do the repetitive stuff that we don't like doing. So, here's a quick refresher. For anyone that's new at this, the software delivery lifecycle. Every stage laid out on the screen here. It starts with plan. You must know what you're going to do. The design, designing what you're going to do. Build, actually building something. The test phase, actually making sure it works and that it actually fulfills what you designed in the first place. Then deploy, to make sure that everyone else can actually enjoy the benefits of this particular feature, product, or whatever it is we're coding and building. And then maintaining it. Making sure it doesn't crash, doesn't get overloaded, doesn't run out of disk space, and all those other fun things that live applications tend to do. And today, there's an AI tool for nearly every single stage. I say nearly, there is an AI tool for every single stage. In fact, there's more than one AI tool for every single stage. And so we're going to go through those now. So here's the map we're going to follow. For planning, AI helps drafting and getting those requirements together so we actually know what we want. For design, it's very good at doing prototypes and documentation. Remember documentation? Yes, let's do it at the same time as we're prototyping and building. Speaking of building, coding assistants. Now you're probably already using coding assistants. You know, Junie, in the side, some of the JetBrains products. autonomous assistants and all that kind of stuff, all throwing code in and helping us do the coding stuff, which we actually like doing. Anyway, more detail later on. Then there's testing. AI loves writing tests. Great. I don't. Let's get AI to write the tests. However, it needs to be done properly. There's some caveats in there. But once you've got your test written, when you add new functions in, we can then add new tests to make sure that the new code works as well. And so deployments. Now, AI-assisted pipelines, they can do extra checks and balances and stuff in order to make sure that when we do deploy, it's not going to break up front. And monitoring. So when we do deploy something, if it does break, I know it happens sometimes, then we can use AI to analyze the mountains of logs and catch that 2-letter character that says we just missed a semicolon somewhere, and hopefully catch it before the customers do. So let's go through each one. Planning. This is where AI quietly saves us the most painful hours. We don't have to start with a blank sheet anymore. We can be in a call and we can have a note taker like Claude or ChatGPT, calmly copying down everything that happened in the call and then providing us a lovely summary afterwards. Acceptance criteria, user stories, list of gaps that still need to be answered. Yes, the AI can summarize all that, and in some instances even create the tickets for us on our board, if we're using Jira or something like that. It means that there's less scope surprises. There's always going to be scope creep because it's iterative programming after all. But because we caught the ambiguity, we can ask those questions up front and have a proper planning conversation rather than an emergency fix. So in design, AI is great at giving 2 or 3 architecture decisions. Of course, if it's a young project. If it's more mature, then there's less room for maneuver. But it can give you honest trade-offs between A, B, and C, and you're not starting from a blank page. It can also turn a rough idea or sketch into a prototype, sometimes fast enough that it can do it whilst you're in the meeting with the customer. Get those decisions straight away rather than going away, programming something, coming back 2 weeks later when you've managed to find a 30-minute slot and for them to say it's rubbish. Instant feedback because we can prototype fast enough. And because it's fast to use, we're actually making documentation and putting those decisions into the documents straight away as they're made, so that we don't remember or misremember why we actually decided to do something. Now, here's the stage that most people immediately think of when AI is going to take your job. And that's fine. Let's go through them. So there's really 2 different types of tool here. There's the inline assistants, like I mentioned earlier. Think Copilot or Cursor or the JetBrains AI. They sit in your editor and quietly suggest the next line to write, the next words, the next block of code. And they're quite helpful. On the other side of the table, there's your autonomous agents. And these you can hand entire blocks of code off to, like Claude Code and Codex. You can just say, here's the ticket, go look at that, come back to me with a PR, with all the code, all the tests, and all the things working already. In fact, GitHub's got its own thing. It's called GHAW, and it's a project that contains lots of GitHub actions. No surprise there. But these GitHub actions are useful. They're not doing exciting stuff. They're doing the boring stuff. They're doing stuff like a daily status check, a scanning the code for new bugs, the raising issues against new bugs it's found. In fact, we'll get onto this bit, even stuff like a grumpy reviewer when you do have that PR. And so Most people, like I said, are already using this. Roughly 46% of newly written code is AI assisted. And on well-defined tasks, according to some stats down here, Microsoft probably, then you can get a 20 to 55% faster gain through writing the code. Although if you've got massive monoliths of projects with lots of complexity, then you might not see any increase in speed at all, because that's a lot of context for the agents to load. So code review, PRs, this is usually the biggest bottleneck I see. And nobody wants to admit to it, because it's a handoff. Handoffs are bad. Handoffs have always been bad. But with AI tools, they can review every pull request that you spew out. It can flag security issues. It can spot typos. It can even go off-piste a little bit and say where your patterns are inconsistent with something that you've written before or something that's already inside the repo. And spot logic gaps. What if the user orders a goat rather than a pint of beer? And it means that your senior reviewer spends less time looking at the report, and hopefully we get the PRs done quicker. And testing. Testing's always been that stage that's been easy to skip. We're running out of time, we're running out of budget, where can we save money? I know, let's get rid of the testing. Unfortunately, the testing is the one thing that saves our butt more often than not. But we can save time on it so easily because it's tedious and boring. Now, AI tools are very good at generating unit tests. Sometimes they get a little bit lost in a loop, but they're getting better. And creating those unit tests means that we can test the code locally, and whilst we've got all the context, we're fixing bugs even before they get committed. And they're generally good at servicing edge cases that, on a Friday afternoon, approaching beer o'clock, we might just skip over. Some tools even self-heal. If you've got a UI test where the code knows that you've moved that button 3 pixels to the right, and then it's going to update the test for you in order to catch that straight away. Or if the test fails, it goes, oh, I know why. Let's move the button 3 pixels to the right. Let's just fix the test. Hooray! Test passes. More coverage and less manual grind. Development. One of my favourite subjects, but also the most tricky. On the development side, we can have AI-assisted pipelines to check configuration errors. Like a dry run kind of thing. But AI can read this stuff faster and quicker than we can. In fact, there's also tools now that automatically track deployments. And when a deployment is tracked and something goes wrong, we can quickly link the deployment, the PR, the code to the incident. We can also collect the logs, analyze the logs, and it means that instead of spending 2 hours in a war room trying to work out what went wrong with the actual deployment, we can work out the root cause, and we've got all the evidence and the analysis within minutes, sometimes within seconds. Anomaly detection in production systems also means that you find out about a problem from a dashboard rather than from the users, and that's much better for the user experience. So let's ground this actual data in real numbers. We don't want to vibe about it. So Microsoft studied some stuff with Microsoft and GitHub working together on this. And so they found that, like I said earlier, 20 to 55% faster in development times if the code base is quite simple and straightforward. Now, if it's really, really complex, you need a lot more context, and so those gains aren't there. Just something for you to watch out for. Around 46% of code is now AI assisted, and that's according to a couple of compilation statistics for you. Roughly 90% of development organizations now use AI somewhere within their workflow or pipeline. as per the DORA and JetBrains surveys this year. And the average developer isn't using one tool, maybe not even two, but on average 2.3 tools, with most using 2 to 4 tools in their development toolset. And sources are on the slide if you want to double check those. And so here's the part that actually protects your reputation as a contractor, as the expert, as the person whose job is on the line. AI generated code can look completely confident and still be completely wrong. A subtle security hole here, misunderstood requirement there, an edge case that nobody tested or wrote tests for. And none of these tools can understand your client's true needs and wants. Your client might say one thing and mean something else. And you know that on the last 4 things that they've asked for, they've always turned and gone in a certain direction. That's knowledge or a hunch that you have, so you can preempt that. And remember, you're still the human in the loop. Customers, no matter how much they want to use AI, and AI doing everything for them, they still want somebody to blame when it goes wrong. They can't just blame a computer. They can't sack the computer. They need somebody to trust. So, when you're using these tools, make sure that you're using them effectively and so that trust is not eroded. Use AI to move faster, but you're still the one that signs off what ships. So you don't need to overhaul your whole workflow tomorrow. Start with just one inline tool maybe. If you're not using those already, Copilot, Cursor both work well. Then maybe add one autonomous agent for tasks you'd normally delegate to something like Claude Code. Rather than a junior, poor juniors, they're going to get it real bad. Give it to Claude Code instead and then review what it's done. Something like update all of these dependencies because dependencies move constantly and we need them all up to date, right? Maybe you're using something like Renovate, that sort of thing. Turn on AI assisted reviews. I think GitHub already switches these on by default, but you might have disabled them already. Have a go with them. They'll look at your pull request and give you some maybe helpful answers. Some of the times it's not, but you have the choice then. It might catch something you wouldn't have otherwise seen. And treat everything that AI produces like a brand new baby would write. Some of it looks perfectly plausible, but it can be utter garbage. But then question it after you've read it, and then approve it if it's any good. If it's not any good, let's throw it in the bin. No time lost by your part. And that's the whole playbook. Read it, question it, approve it. So across the SDLC, we can use AI in every single bit. Faster planning, faster prototyping, faster coding, smarter reviews, better test coverage, and safer deployments. And of course, reviews if the deployment goes wrong. And you are still firmly in charge of quality and client trust. If you're already using one of these tools, drop a comment down below and tell me what's actually working for you. And if this is useful, obviously a subscribe would be helpful. And I cover this thing with practical no-hype tooling when I can next be asked to do a video. Hey, if you've got this far, thanks very much. And I'll see you in the next one.